How we doing, everybody? We're here. We're well. We're live from Choctaw County, Mississippi, the palatial studios here in my bedroom. Thanks for joining along, Talkin Dawgs live chat, our weekly live chat here on YouTube. I appreciate all you guys for jumping on here, for subscribing to this channel. We'll have a nice talk tonight once again about some Mississippi State sports. Bulldogs go 2-0 in this big three or four game stretch here so far. Texas A&M and Arkansas. They've won 3 straight ball games for the first time under Mike Leach. Coming into the stretch here after that LSU game, you really felt like State needed to win 3 of 4 against Bowling Green, Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Kentucky. They're 3-0 at this point in this stretch, and now you're starting to get a little greedy, and you start to think this team's actually pretty good. You want to win this ball game on Saturday at Kentucky. So big game coming up for the Bulldogs. They are playing right now some of their best football under Mike Leach. Loving what the offense is doing. I'm loving the playmaking ability of this defense. There's some things that you can pick apart from this team at this point. But the bottom line is, folks, you're watching a really good football team in Mississippi State. I think this is a really good team. And they got a chance to have a really good season here. So the back half of the schedule is really big for the Bulldogs, and they're going to have to win some ball games against some good teams. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to discuss the matchup with Kentucky. We're going to delve back into that Arkansas game a little bit and what went right for the Bulldogs in that one. So once again, this is an open forum for everybody. There's no real model on how I do this thing. You guys throw in some questions. I'll answer them. You guys throw in some comments. We'll talk about it. Whatever y'all want to talk about, we will. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about that game before we get into some of your questions. And I thought that State did an excellent job, again, coming out in the first possession, in the first quarter, and really taking care of business. They weren't perfect against Texas A&M in the first quarter, and it took a little bit to get them going offensively. But in this one, I mean, things just worked to script for the Bulldogs. They get the ball first. They drive right down the field and score. Then they get a stop on defense. They score again in the first quarter, 14-0 in the first quarter. That's really difficult for a team on the road. And for a team being on the road without its starting quarterback, it's even more difficult. And Arkansas, I didn't think was ever really in the ball game after that. And there were some nervous moments for fans. I didn't think State closed the first half very well. But Arkansas was never really in the ball game after that 14-0 start. And I thought just getting off to the big start there was huge. And that's important for Mississippi State and how this offense goes, I think, to get in rhythm early. And they've done it this year, man. 66-7 is the score in the first quarter. I think that's just I think that's remarkable what State's been able to do, because last year that was one of their biggest issues was those slow starts. To completely turn that around, I think that's been huge for State's success early on this season. And 66-7 is just total domination. And I think the fourth quarter they've been pretty good too. So State's just really come out and gotten off to great starts in these ball games. And even against LSU in their loss, they came out and scored on their opening possession, got an early lead. They've had that early lead against everybody. They got down early on the first possession to Arizona, but came back and took the lead. So State has not really been playing from behind much this season. I think that's been huge. And that's going to be big for them in their road games moving forward too. But 40-17, you look at the stats, 33 first downs to 18. Arkansas had some big plays in there, and I thought that was the most glaring thing that Arkansas did against Mississippi State's defense. But 241 yards rushing. I mean, that's a lot of yardage, but they did run the football 44 times. And then passing the ball, 10 completions for 242 yards. That's a lot of yardage on those completions. But I thought for the most part, it was kind of, some freak plays there. Malik Hornsby's your quarterback. You didn't really game plan for him. He's shown nothing in the form of passing in his career to this point. And I thought that a few of those plays were just kind of, freaky plays. But you're going to see these big plays against Zach Arnett's defense because of how aggressive they are. I think, and I wrote about this after the game, the most important thing to me for Mississippi State. You see an offense that puts up 483 yards. That's a lot of yards. 7 yards of play. That's a lot of yards. State had 6.7 yards of play. Arkansas had more yards per play. But look at the scoreboard. They scored 2 touchdowns. They scored a touchdown in the second quarter, and they scored a touchdown in the third quarter. State was not giving up much inside the red zone. They forced a couple of turnovers on downs. They forced 2 interceptions. So this Mississippi State defense, and while they may give up some big plays and while they may give up some yardage, they're very good inside the red zone. They're very good at forcing turnovers. They're very good at forcing some negative plays. That's the most important thing I think that you have to focus on here is that Mississippi State's defense makes up for those yardage. Yards don't always equal points, and I think that's the biggest thing. And you can say, well, the other team gave us those mistakes. I don't agree with that. I think that Mississippi State is forcing those mistakes. And I think this weekend against Kentucky, I think that you're going to see Zach Arnett put a whole lot of pressure on Will Levis or whoever the quarterback is and force that offensive line to be able to pick up the blitzing and force Will Levis to make plays. I think that's what you're going to see. And last year it worked for Mississippi State. We'll see if that happens this week. So Will Rogers set the SEC record for completions and insanely did it in nearly half the games that Aaron Murray did it at Georgia, which is just unbelievable. He was 31 of 48, 395 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 straight games without an interception. His completion percentage is at 72%. He's going to be if he keeps this pace, he's going to be one of, if not the all-time leader in completion percentage in NCAA football, which is nuts. But the big thing, I thought, Dylan Johnson, 17 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. State rushed for 173 yards, which was a record under Mike Leach at Mississippi State. Jaquavius Marks was solid in there. The 2 running backs, I think, touched the ball over 40 times, had over 200 yards of offense between them. I mean, Mississippi State's just getting so much from these running backs at this point, and I really believe that it's changing the game for this offense. You're seeing Will Rogers have some more comfortability in the pocket because these teams are not able to get a whole lot of pressure on him from the offensive line. You're seeing plays downfield because of this rushing attack. So the offensive line's playing better. The rushing game's been significantly better. Will Rogers has been better. Mike Leach talked about that today. Everybody's better across the board, and that means a better air raid offense. State averaging over 38 points a game, closing in on 40 points a game. They've scored 40-plus in every single ball game in this 3-game streak. So Mississippi State is just playing at a really, really high level right now, and they need to keep that up because they have Bama, they have Georgia, Ole Miss, Kentucky down the stretch here. 4 really, really big ball games, and I think 2 of them for sure, Kentucky and Ole Miss, right now I think could go either way. I picked Mississippi State to beat Kentucky this weekend. I think they can beat Ole Miss. Bama and Georgia, we'll see. I think both those teams are beatable, but until Mississippi State wins a ball game like that, I'm not going to pick them. But I think those are the games right there that are for the taking for Mississippi State. And then you got Auburn, who I think they beat in East Tennessee State. That gets you to 7 wins if you're counting those as wins, and then find a way there with Kentucky and Ole Miss. If you can win both those games, you get to 9, and I mean then you're talking about a really special season by Mississippi State. Mississippi State's pass. So I think everything has gone really well for the Bulldogs to this point, and we'll see how it goes the rest of the way. All right, we'll start taking some questions now. I'm done running my mouth on all that. So we'll start with Kyle. Where did the origin of the cowbell come from at the game? I know it's probably a long story. It started with apparently there's a legend or a story that a cow wandered onto the field. Might have been against Ole Miss. I can't remember exactly, but many, many years ago. And Mississippi State rallied to win the game or something like that. And since then, that was kind of the hat tip to the cow was having the bell to kind of rally the team. So that's basically where that came from. Let's Let's see. Jay, good to see you, Jay. The defense on Saturday certainly gave up a few too many big plays. How much do you believe that was a result of not knowing who'd be QB1? I think that was part of it. I think that it was just one of those things where you had a quarterback that has shown nothing in the past. I think State sold out to defend him in the running game, and they left a lot of receivers out there. They weren't as aggressive on those wide receivers, and they weren't really looking to guard them down the field because they probably didn't respect Hornsby's arm enough. I thought, and I think this is kind of getting lost in that conversation about those big plays, the adjustments in the second half. Late third quarter, if you'll go back and look at the play-by-play and kind of how things kind of came about there late in that ball game. Late in the third quarter, Hornsby finished 1 for 7, starting in that final possession of the third quarter that leaked into the fourth quarter. Last 3 possessions, 1 of 7, 5 yards, 2 interceptions. So State adjusted that defense. They weren't out there just, getting absolutely gashed on every play. They adjusted the defense. I thought late in the second half, they really dominated that ball game when they started to adjust things and made sure that they defended the pass a little better. I thought they did a really good job in the third and fourth quarter, sealing that game off and keeping things where it was, because the second and third quarter, the second quarter was pretty bad, and into the third, there were some bad plays there too. But, State made their share of plays as well. I'm not really worried about that. I think State's going to give up some big plays on this defense, but I'm not really worried about that being, State's demise or something like that. So, I think that was kind of, a lot of those plays were kind of fluky. Michael Starr, Robbie, why do some of our fans feel like we have to be the Mr. Rogers of the SEC and be nice to everyone, even when every fan base trashes us at every opportunity? I think, the good thing about the SEC is the trash talk, man. I don't think that you have to be classy at all times. I think that's part of it. That comes with the territory. I mean, individually, if you choose not to, that's fine. But reprimanding people for making jokes about the opposing team or something like that, I'm not into that, because you're seeing this on every single message board. I mean, Texas A&M came on Mississippi State's campus and talked trash about Mississippi State, and there were some fans that wanted the State fans to just let that happen. I'm not all about that. I think you should be able to return fire if you want to, in a good enough manner where it's not, complete trash. Watson, we go back to last week and talked about how much rushing attack opens up the air raid. Are we seeing adjustments by Leach to incorporate the run? I think that to me, it's more about they're trusting a little bit more, I think, in the running backs and the running game. And I think this offense in the past, he's run the football more than he's shown in his first 2 years of State. It hasn't been as just a straight up, Mississippi State's going to drop back and pass it 70 times a game. The rushing attack has been a factor for Mike Leach in his more successful teams. And this year, it just seems like they're starting to trust more in those two backs that they have. I mean, you got to remember, both of those guys have now played in like 30 games at Mississippi State. They've been here since their freshman year, and they've been playing a whole lot of football. And this season, they're having a whole lot of success because of the offensive line and the comfortability there. But I do think there has been a little more emphasis to give those guys the ball. Dylan Johnson, 67 carries, 402 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's 6 yards a pop. That is going to help you win a lot of games. Jaquavius Marks, 52 carries for 245. That's almost 5 yards a pop. So your two running backs are averaging almost 5.5 yards a carry. And I've said from the start, if your running backs can average 5 yards a carry consistently, I think that this offense can be very difficult to defend, because we saw it in the first possession. I think 3 straight carries to start the game with Dylan Johnson. I think they went for like 23 yards. Arkansas came out and showed that front. Will Rogers said, we're going to establish the run right away, and that's what they did. And for the rest of the ball game, It was about like that. Now Arkansas tightened it up a little bit, and the rushing attack wasn't just completely gashing them the rest of the ball game for the most part, but State was continuously moving the chains with their running back. They were picking up third and fourth downs to the running backs, and that opens up one-on-one opportunities for players downfield. I just feel like from the start, this has kind of been the goal, is to have a running game that is able to take pressure off your quarterback and take pressure off the passing offense. And that's what we're seeing. You're able to see Will play a little more loose. And he's thrown some passes that should have been picked off last 2 weeks. And he's certainly gotten lucky on some of those. But I think what you're seeing is a quarterback that's playing a little more loose in the pocket because he knows he has protection and he knows he has a running game that's allowed, some plays downfield. So that makes for a better offense. If he throws some interceptions, then you live with that, unless it's just completely egregious stuff. But right now, you're seeing a quarterback that's very comfortable in his own skin and very comfortable in this offense, and this offense is running at a high level. Big supporter of Robbie. I like that. Rob, I think we should destroy Kentucky. We're just that much better of a team. It's hard to predict that. I think State is a better team, but we've seen Mississippi State go in there and struggle. In 2014, had the number one team in the country against a 5-win Kentucky team. Really struggled coming out of the gates. Had to kind of fight off a late rally there. Lost in 2016, lost in 2018. Those are some bad games, 2016, 18, and 20. I don't see Mississippi State playing that badly. I just don't. I think this offense, there's comfortability at this point that should be able to travel a little bit. And I don't think that you're going to see those long lulls offensively that we saw in 2018 and 20. That was just so bad in those 2 years. And Zach Arnett has coached it up pretty well against Kentucky in the last 2 years. So I'm not predicting a blowout, but I do think State should win that game. Will Levis or not, I think State's a better team. Drew, what's up, Drew? Drew Massey, my buddy in Louisville. Yeah, I'm trying my best, man. It's very difficult to keep Mr. Haydad in check. It's just it's an impossible job. I should get paid more than I do for it. Dron Ruth, Robbie, since you're blessed with an AP vote, would you bless us with your insights on Robbie Falk's top 5 Heisman candidates? I think C.J. Stroud is in there from Ohio State. Bryce Young being injured, probably taking him out of the game a little bit. Hendon Hooker, I think, should be up there. That guy's been incredible. He should be getting a lot more hype than he's getting. I think that another win this week for Mississippi State and a really good performance from Will Rogers, I really believe that he starts to pop in on some odds a little bit. I'm not saying top 5, but I think you start seeing some conversation. I think if Mississippi State wins this game and he throws for like 350 with 4 touchdowns or something, I think you're going to start to see people discuss Will Rogers a little more in that conversation. But C.J. Stroud would be my guy that's probably around or at the top of the list right now. And then Hendon Hooker's up there as well. I think we should be talking more about Will Anderson in that conversation. I don't think we discuss defensive players when you talk about the Heisman. You start thinking running backs, quarterbacks, sometimes a wide receiver, but not much. And I think that we should be talking about Will Anderson. He should be on the Heisman odds because that's it should be for the best player. So I wish I got a Heisman vote. That'd be nice. Watson Boyd, what's your confidence level that Levis is playing? I think he'll play. I don't think he'll be extremely healthy. Turf toe, I think, is the diagnosis on the lower body injury that he's got. And that's something that can linger. Wayne Mackin had that. And I know things have changed over the years, but I think Wayne Mackin had that in 2001 or whenever that was. And that was just a constant problem. And I don't think he's going to be able to be a really elusive, mobile quarterback in this game. And then the fingers or whatever happened to his hand, dislocation or whatever, I mean, that's got to play a factor too, I would think. That's probably not fully healed. So I think he'll play, but I don't think he'll be 100%. State's really gotten kind of fortunate last 2 weeks with KJ Jefferson and Will Levis now being questionable for the game. But like I said, I still think State can win that game without Will Levis or with Will Levis playing. It's just all about them executing and doing their job. Jerron, is the Kentucky defense the best defense we have seen so far this season? No, I don't. I thought LSU's defense and the game plan they had was really good, and I still think that they're a really good defense, although it didn't really show against Tennessee. And I think A&M's defense is really good. A&M's issues were they were getting no pressure up front. Their defensive line did not play very well, I didn't think, or their linebackers for that much. And Arkansas is not up there for sure because their defensive line was getting no pressure. Their linebackers were making most of their plays, and outside of the McLaughlin kid, I don't think they really have a great secondary. They've had a lot of injuries, but I would say LSU and then A&M. They're probably more talented. We'll see what Kentucky schemes up. They usually have a pretty good scheme, and I think it would probably be a good idea for them to try to put some pressure on Will Rogers because the last two teams have not put any pressure on Will, and he's just eating them up. John K, I'm just happy we were using the running game more now in the Leach offense. Yeah, that's been a big factor, I think. Jerron, if you have to put Dollar Bill back on the line when he's healthy, where do you put him? I just don't think that you can put him back out there at this moment with how the offensive line's playing. You've had so much success in the last 2 weeks, I guess, with Nick Jones at left tackle and Stephen Lasoya at left guard. And the right side's been solid too. And I know they haven't been bringing a whole lot of pressure on Will Rogers, but we've had moments that we've seen where Mississippi State could not block 3 guys or 4 guys with 5. And Will has stood back there for 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, he's had so much time. So I think right now you leave it as it is. And if something changes or if you're having issues, maybe you can rotate Dollar Bill in there to see. And it's really unfortunate that it's happened, but it happens sometimes. Sometimes a backup comes in there and things get settled. And no fault to the starter. I don't think Dollar Bill's done anything wrong, but those guys have just played really well. John K, we better beat Ole Miss this year. Don't care if it's on the road. Yeah, they need to win that game. They definitely need to win that game. I think they can. Guys, we're talking about Will Levis a little bit. Yeah, nothing has really been stated today about his status. That I think Mark Stoops said that he practiced today. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but he did practice. I think he's going to play. I feel a lot better about him playing than I did KJ Jefferson last week. I didn't think KJ would play. Mason, where does our red zone defense rank? I feel like we had some big stops in the red zone last 2 weeks. Good question. I don't know. I guess we could check it out as we are live on here with some great moments here. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do for the people, though. Let's pull up the stats. Their defense has been. I don't know what they're ranked right now, and I'll try to find it. But they're, by the way, Will Rogers number 1 in the country in passing right now, 2,110 yards. How about that? But they've just been. It seems like they've just been really good inside the red zone, especially the last 2 weeks. Which you have 2 turnovers or whatever it was. They're ranked 19th in the country in red zone efficiency. They are giving up scores on 72% of their drives. But, the last 2 weeks, you've kept Arkansas out of the end zone twice, two times, 2 or 3 times, kept them from scoring rather, and you did the same against A&M, I think. So, 18 red zone attempts with 13 scores. That's pretty good. You hold a team out of scoring in the red zone 5 times at this point. That's pretty good. Texas A&M is up there. State scored every trip against A&M when they played them. They have 11 red zone scores and 18 opportunities. So A&M is number 1 in the SEC. Tennessee is number 2. They're tied for 6th. They've had 13 scores and 20 chances. And State's number 3. Not bad. That's pretty darn good. I don't know how to say that name, but I'm really happy you're on here from Berlin, Germany. Sven? Really cool. Thanks for tuning in, man. Jerron, as gambling begins to seep into college athletics, do you expect rules coming in on injury status? I don't know. I mean, gambling's been around with college athletics for a while. I don't think so. But if Mike Leach says that he wants college football to be, the players to be employees, then he should be forced to talk about injuries. Then that's the case. That's what they do in the NFL. I mean, you have to give an injury report every week. I would like to know what's going on with some guys. I would like to know what's going on with Jaden Crumedy. How far is he away from getting on the field? I mean, I understand you like to keep everything in-house. You don't want to tip your hand one way or the other. But when you're seeing Jaden Crumedy out there on the sidelines with a cast on his hand and you see Dollar Bill with, a boot on or whatever, I mean, it's obvious that these guys are hurt. So can we at least acknowledge that they're hurt and, we don't have to say what the injury is, but how far along are they? That would be nice. I'm a little surprised too, like with the gambling, but I don't know how you enforce that in college athletics, especially when they are not actually employees at this point. I still believe we have not beat a good team so far. Arkansas without KJ is 50%. A&M is just a mess. Yeah, but that's still a really talented team. I mean, at what point do you say that you've played a good team? You're playing in the SEC and you're halfway through the schedule. I mean, what do you draw the line on? Are you saying that, Alabama and Georgia are going to be the only 2 teams that are good? Because when I look at the schedule, I see teams that are comparable to Arkansas and A&M. I don't think Kentucky is much better than either one of those teams. Ole Miss had to have a legal motion to beat Kentucky last week. I don't think they're that much better than Kentucky. If they play on a neutral field and Kentucky's fully healthy, I mean, I think Kentucky can win that game. So, I mean, is State going to play only 2 good teams this year? I think whenever you put that out there, you start to get into some gray area because I think these teams are good. I think Arkansas is a good team. They have 4- and 5-star talent on just about every level. I think Texas A&M is a good team. They have a top 10 roster. I think that they've made some boneheaded plays. I mean, that team took the number 1 team, number 2 team, whatever Alabama was, to the final play of the game. So they might not have been playing very well, but I think that also diminishes what Mississippi State's done too. So I disagree with that. I think State's beaten a couple of good teams. We'll win in Lexington by 3 TDs. We'll see. Law Dog, we need to spy with someone faster than our starters at linebacker. Maybe so. If you have a guy like Hornsby, I agree. I don't think a Will Levis or somebody like that is going to do a whole lot of outrunning some of those linebackers. And I think Nate Watson and those guys are fast enough they can get to the edge and make a stop on the quarterback like that. But yeah, like guys like Jaden Daniels, I thought State should have spied a little more with a player like maybe Jalen Green or Jackie Matthews or somebody like that. That might help. Drama, Will having the ability to check down and audible the calls, does Will have a larger playbook in his head than Leach has in his hand? They have a few plays on that play card, and Will's able to kind of diagnose that there's not many plays that Mississippi State runs. There's a lot of different routes that the receivers will run. The running game's 2 or 3 plays. I mean, they don't have a ton of running plays. They check down to a run if they see something defensively that makes sense for them. And I think Will's gotten a better grasp on when to run those plays, what play to run. Are you going to attack on the outside with a tall sweep? Are you going to run, up the middle with a dive or something like that? So I think he's gotten better at that. And I think that he's got some autonomy there from Mike Leach to make those calls too if he sees something from the defense. Oh, Jay, no doubt a big decision need to be made on dollar bill. Yeah, you got to make a decision there. I mean, it's not about loyalty either. You got to be thinking about what's best for the team, and I think that's what they're going to do. Mike Leach has never, since he's been here, he's never been afraid to play the best players, and I think do the best for the team. So I mean, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue. They'll figure out the best way to handle that. Mason, how good is the new Hardy drop? Man, I love it. I think that it's not going to he's not going to appeal to the country purists. And there's already a lot of them out there that don't like him. And I get that. I totally get that. But for somebody that's on the outside looking in, I mean, I love country music. I love a little bit of everything. You have to respect the range that he kind of performs with here, with being able to be a country music guy, being able to be a rock guy. Known Hardy for a long time, went to college together. I knew who he was in college. He was not a country guy. He was a rock guy to the bone as far as music is concerned. And you're starting to see that come out a little more. It started with Sold Out. I thought he hit another level with that. The Mockingbird and the Crow song is just incredible. If you just listen to the song and kind of how it flows and the lyrics and stuff, I mean, it's just next level stuff. It's just such a great writer, a really good artist. I'm excited about this album coming out in January. It's going to be, I think, 8 songs country and 8 songs rock. So that's going to be really fun. John K., if Hidden Hooker beats Alabama on Saturday, he will be up there for Heisman. I agree. I think that's going to be the difference for him. They're going to have to win that big game to push him in there, and I think he might be the front runner for the Heisman if that happens. I think Tennessee wins that game, by the way. But he's been so good. I mean, he doesn't make mistakes. He's getting the ball down the field. He threw a couple of dimes against LSU. I mean, he's been just otherworldly good, and he's got a chance to really burst under the scene here this week with Alabama. I think he deserves it too. Rod, Forbes should win the Thorpe Award. He wasn't even on their watch list. Just insane. Just insane not to put him on your watch list. I don't get it. And he's hardly ever on the All SEC list and things like that. He's putting up some really big numbers at cornerback, some numbers that not many people do. Just a playmaker. How much longer Crumity could be out is what I meant earlier for Bryce. Yeah, I don't know, man. I really just I would love to know what his status is because I just don't have a clue. He had some damage to his hand or wrist area that was worse than a break, and that's caused a lot more time for him on the shelf. But the good thing is you get probably your best defensive lineman for the back half of the schedule. If you can survive this Kentucky game, the Alabama game is what it is. If you can get him back in 3 weeks for Auburn, let him get his feet wet, and have him for that stretch with Georgia, Eastern Kentucky, Eastern Tennessee, and Ole Miss, I mean, you're talking about the defensive line getting a boost there at the end of the year. I mean, that would be huge. But you really need him back here late in the year. Watson Boyd, what remaining game on the schedule can we win that we're not supposed to? Just depends. I mean, would Ole Miss be on that list? I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that are predicting Ole Miss to win that game. I think I predicted Ole Miss preseason. That wouldn't be a big surprise. So I would say probably Georgia would be the one because Ole Miss is kind of a toss-up game. It's always going to be in the Egg Bowl. You expect to beat Auburn. You expect to beat Kentucky. Georgia would be the one. Playing at home, that's a team that didn't play well at Missouri a couple weeks ago. So it's not like they've, just constantly just put it together on the road. So I'm not going to pick them to stay in the ball game with Bama because they haven't done it much in the last 13 years or whatever. So Georgia would be my pick. Jay, at what point would you redshirt Crumity? He's already used his, so he can't redshirt. He has one more year for COVID, but I don't think it'll happen. Sven, however you say it. Yeah. Being Starkville on November 5th and the 12th. Awesome. Getting 2 free tickets. That's great, man. Hope you have a good time. Let me know if you need some recommendations. 4,500 miles is a long way, but you get a chance to enjoy 2 state games, get some free tickets. You can't beat that, man. John Kay would beat Texas A&M down to the ground while Alabama barely survived, although with a backup quarterback. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Texas A&M is as bad as people think they are. I think that's still a talented team. They're not playing well. Jimbo Fisher has not had a great year as far as play calling is concerned. That's still a really talented team with a lot of great players on it. And you just basically just walk the dog with them. I mean, they had no chance in that game. So, I mean, you got to you got to give State their credit on that. I don't want to diminish Mississippi State by saying all these teams are bad. I think State's played really well too. Bryce, thoughts on the crowd this past weekend? I didn't go to the A&M game, but the crowd was crazy in it this weekend. Attendance looked pretty good. I thought that it was a really good atmosphere. I thought it was a significantly better crowd than Texas A&M. I was impressed with it. There was a lot of empty seats on the east side, but a lot of that could have been Arkansas tickets, so there's no way of really knowing that. There were some empty seats up in the upper deck, but the lower level on the west side and wrapping around the student section was pretty much packed. The crowd was lively. Most of the crowd stayed for most of the game into the fourth quarter. So that's what Mississippi State's atmosphere should be like every single week. And the fans, I thought, really brought it. Michael, please tell me kicking is going to be better. Should we just go for 2? Mike Leach said that today. I asked him today. I tried to get some kind of answer of what's going on the kicking game, and he basically said, people aren't in the right position perfectly. Didn't really give any kind of insight of what the problem is. I wanted to know, is it a bad snap? Is it a bad hold? What are we what are we seeing here? What's going on? And didn't really get that. But he did say if it continues, he's going to start going for 2. So we'll see if that happens. They say that the 2-point conversion is actually statistically it's better for you to go for 2. Nobody really does that. So especially in the NFL where the field goal is lined up now, it's actually better for you to go for 2. You have a higher chance of getting the 2-point conversion. You do making the extra point. The Steelers used to do that a lot. Oh, the Steelers. Mason, shout out to our women's golf team. Are we turning into one of the best all-around athletic departments in the SEC? That's one thing I talked to Haydad about the other day when we were at the press box. He saw the women's golf team was number 4 in the country, and he was kind of surprised by that. I think John Cohen has absolutely nailed these non-revenue sports, the sports that don't get talked about much. And that's not going to matter to a lot of people because at the end of the day, football is like the biggest thing in Mississippi State, and of course, baseball and basketball too. So that's where he's going to be judged is what he's doing with the football team and the basketball team for the most part, and baseball too. But when you look at it, women's golf is number 4 in the country at this point. Soccer is having one of its best seasons ever. Started off undefeated in the first 9 or 10 matches, whatever it was. Volleyball had its best season ever last season. It's having a really good start this year. Um, Softball hosted a super regional for the first time ever last year, and Samantha Ricketts has been really consistent since she's been here. Um, what else? What other sport? Of course, baseball is technically kind of non-revenue nationally. State makes money on it, but national championship there. The big question marks is men's and women's basketball and football. And I think football is kind of answering that question at this point. You're starting to see a lot of consistency with Leach, so I don't think there's a whole lot of issues there. So, I mean, you're really down to, basketball at this point that hasn't been proven. He just made his first hire in men's basketball. Women's basketball he's made now 2 hires. So women's basketball has got to get better. But for the most part, just about everybody that he's hired in these other sports have been really good. So I think you got to give him credit for that. He's done a really good job at hiring some good coaches in those sports. John, how would you personally feel about Leach if we lose again to Ole Miss? I would just question whether or not State is doing what it takes in that rivalry game. Are you putting emphasis in it? I mean, I don't think it should make or break Mike Leach as a coach here. It's disappointing, and people are going to be very upset about it. But I don't think it should tell you whether or not he's a good coach or he's being successful as a coach here. I mean, Joe Moorhead was 2-0 against Ole Miss and got fired after 2 seasons. But I think that I really have to win this game to get the fan base behind you. I think what that does is it starts to disconnect the fan base a little bit. People start to become a little more fractured with Mike Leach. They're not going to be behind them because people at the end of the day, they want to go to bowl games here and they want to win 8 or 9 games. And if you win more, that's great. But getting to bowl games and beating Ole Miss is like the most important thing you have to do at Mississippi State in football. That's just the nature of it. This program has not been successful enough to expect to win 10 games regularly, to go to New Year's 6 games. But you expect to beat Ole Miss at least, regularly, and you expect to go to bowl games at this point. If you're not doing those things, then the fans are not going to get behind you. So they really need to this year. They really need to do that to push Mike Leach into the next direction at Mississippi State. Dron mentioned a little bit about that with those other fall sports. Jay, yes, Texas A&M and Arkansas fans didn't seem to show up the past few weekends. Really didn't. I thought A&M would have a bigger crowd. Arkansas probably had a better crowd than A&M did, but a lot of empty seats over there in that Arkansas section, and really A&M as well. Jay, I can always count on you for these baseball questions. What's the buzz coming out of the Diamond Dog fall scrimmages? Really good. I haven't been to one yet. I really need to. Mike Nemeth covers that for us a lot in the fall, and we appreciate his efforts on that. And he's one of the only guys that does that, and I really appreciate that. I've been looking through those stories and the stats and stuff, and State has shown some impressive pitching prowess. I think the pitching has been better this fall than it was last year. I'm not trying to hype that group up to be significantly better, but Durangelo Shnente has been really good. I talked to somebody that I trust the other day when it comes to baseball evaluations and just his thoughts, and he was really excited about him because of his makeup and kind of what he said, how he figures things out. He figures things out on the mound. And as a freshman, he might get beat up a little bit on the mound, but I like the fact that you have a guy that the batter can hardly ever have the upper hand against. If he can come out there and face a guy that's really good against right-handers and switch to the left side, I mean, that is a tremendous advantage for Mississippi State. So I'm really fascinated with what they do with him in year one. Been hearing good things about Bradley Lofton, the true freshman, Landon Gartman. I've heard some really good things about him too. Parker Stinnett had a good appearance the other day. I'm excited to see what this team looks like. The offense looks like it's going to be really good, and they've been without Kellum Clark, who's been hurt, and Hunter Hines as well. So I think the team's going to bounce back this year. I don't know how good they can be, but I think they're an NCAA tournament team. I'd be shocked if they didn't bounce back this season. Bryce, I got to know the truth. Two Bros or Humble Taco? I know you and Haydad advertise both, but let's be honest. Two Brothers is miles better food wise. I mean, I'm always going to pick Two Brothers over everything else in Starkville, but I think Humble Taco is very good. Last time I was there was excellent. I got to get back over there. And this is like it's the best place to go when it's like 65 to 75 degrees, maybe a slight breeze. It's the best place to go sit on the patio, have a good taco. Their chips and salsa are really good, good queso. I like their chicken and rice. So they're both solid. I can't recommend either one of them more. Jerron, what is the lock screen wallpaper on your phone? Pick of the family, favorite wrestler, state background, generic background. It's a picture of my daughter in the snow last year. Yeah, last February when we had that big ice storm. It's been that lock screen ever since. LaRod says you'd rather beat Bama than Ole Miss. I mean, here's the thing with that, though. I agree to an extent, but would you rather win that game and then still have that negative end of the regular season? That's always been my thing. Like, a win over Bama is huge, but two, you kind of want that momentum. I don't know. I mean, I think I would take that too, just because you beat number one. But it sort of diminishes it at the end of the year whenever you lose to Ole Miss. It's like a catch-22 there. So I mean, you're used to losing to Bama. I think it would be better to beat Ole Miss at the end of the year because you've already expected. If you had to trade those out, I think I would take Ole Miss just because you expected to lose to Bama. You can finish the year on a strong note with at least back-to-back wins here at the end of the year with East Tennessee and then them. And you're talking about maybe 9 wins going into a bowl game, a chance to win 10. I don't know. That's just me. I don't think that's a bad idea either way. Jerron, if we win one of the 2 games we probably won't win this year, would you prefer a win over Georgia or Alabama? That's a good question. That might be an even better question. I think Georgia, I mean, like I said, you expect to lose at Alabama. It's been happening since 2008. So Georgia at home, I think that atmosphere would be nuts if you got to win in that game. I mean, imagine coming in that fourth quarter, you have Sweet Dreams hitting, Mississippi State's up by 7. You need a big stop defensively. You get the stop after the fourth quarter because the crowd's so lit. After the game, fans rush the field or whatever. I think that would be the bigger moment for Mississippi State to do that. I don't think you can go wrong with either. I mean, going to Alabama and winning a game would be unreal. But I would go with Georgia just because it's at home. You got a chance to make a national statement with your crowd. Everybody, you probably have a great group of recruits in. That would probably be mine if I had to guess. Dylan, would we rush the field if we were upset Georgia? I would. How many times do you beat the number 2 team in the country? It depends though. When they beat Auburn, State was 2 and Auburn was 3 or whatever that was. And so it would have been kind of silly to me if you rushed the field while you're ranked around the same spot. If State was a top 10 team and beat Georgia, it wouldn't have the same luster. So I don't know. I think they probably would. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, those kind of wins. And we haven't seen State rush the field in a long time either. State's beaten some top 15 teams, and they haven't rushed the field. So I don't know. They might not. Jay, any chance Rodgers is around for 2024 season? He could. I don't think he will, just because he's probably going to be ready to go at that point. I don't think he's one of those that's going to care about records. If he does and he's healthy this entire time, it's going to be wild. The records that he sets and the numbers that he puts up, they'll never be broken because you won't have a guy that plays that long under Mike Leach unless you have injuries and things like that. I mean, you're talking about 5.5 years as a starter for Mississippi State, or 4.5 years as a starter for Mississippi State. No, it would be trying to get my yeah, it would be 4.5. 4.5 years as starter for Mississippi State in the air raid offense. He's going to break all the Mississippi State records by the end of this year, more than likely. And next year, he's going to start tacking off some SEC records. You stay for that 2024 season, you're starting to really put a dent into the NCAA records. So it's possible, but I don't think he will. Oh, Jerron, would you rather be able to hit a curveball a quarter of the time, or would you rather be able to throw the ball 50 yards on a dime? I'm gonna say probably hit a curveball if you're getting hits off of it, because just throwing the ball 50 yards down the field, I mean that's great, but you got to have somebody else make a play. But if you're able to hit the curveball and you're getting hits, I mean that's your own doing, and you're going to make a lot of money doing that. And also, I would rather be playing baseball because you're not going to get as seriously injured as you would in football. So I mean, and you can make a lot more money in baseball too. So I mean, that to me, baseball is the way to go. Dylan, I can see Leach's offense being dangerous with a quarterback like Parsons in a few years. Yeah, I think that it just depends on how well he comes in and grasp the offense. If he's able to grasp the offense and he's really good in it from his mindset and the passing ability, having a guy that can really make you miss in the pocket, get out of the pocket and extend plays, I think could be a game changer. Jay, it's hard. Only one good area to rush from, and that's the student section. Yeah, they do a pretty good job of making sure nobody gets out of the stands. I've seen some people get seriously hurt rushing the field at Mississippi State before, by the way. Daryl, we're better and better every game. The bend but not break defense is not as good as Arnett had at San Diego State, but we're getting there. Yeah, and I think, too, he's playing better teams. You're playing really good quarterbacks. You're playing really good running backs, wide receivers, offensive linemen. I mean, the talent level is significantly higher than what he was seeing. But I think he's done a good job. He has not been the best defensive coordinator in the country. The numbers are not incredible or anything like that. But having a guy like this to pair with Leach's offense has been great. They've allowed Mississippi State to be in most games that they've played. There's very few games where I've looked at the defense and I've said, the defense is why they lost the game. So, Alton, horrendous call and a heck of a play by Chris Jones. Yeah, I didn't see it. You'll have to tell me what just happened. I think it looks like it was a roughing. Again, I don't even want to see the play if that's the case. I don't want to see it. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of the roughing the passer penalty. Logan White wondering what bowl game you think State will make. I don't know. If they win 9 regular season games, I think they're going to go to, Citrus, something in Florida. Possibly, you could possibly be in the mix for the Sugar Bowl if you have a good run here at the end. I don't know. But I think 8 or 9 wins and you're going to a solid bowl game. I don't think you'll be in Memphis this year. I would love to go to Las Vegas. I don't care what the tier that bowl game is on. I would love to go to Las Vegas. Okay, so Jones sacked, stripped, and recovered the fumble, and it was called roughing. I don't even want to see the video, but I'm going to look at it anyway. Here it is. Let me just see what happened here. I'm punishing myself. Oh my God. There's no way. There's no. Oh, that's sickening. I can't deal. I can't deal with that. Daryl, I figure maybe 9-3 in the Gator Bowl. Could be. You think you do think they can beat Georgia at home, but you can't beat Saban in the refs until State beats Nick Saban. I'm just not going to predict. I'm not even going to predict that they're going to be really in those games. It's just become a constant thing. Daryl, we're talking right now, man. You're good. John, do you have any thoughts on Dak right now in the Dallas Cowboys? Yeah, I mean, you're paying him $50 million or whatever his contract is. He's got to be your guy unless he comes out and he just starts absolutely crapping the bed, which I don't think is going to happen. But it's what you do whenever the backup quarterback comes in and starts having success. You start saying, well, maybe he needs to be the quarterback. It's going to create doubt every single time Dak struggles. They're going to talk about Cooper Rush getting in the game. It's very frustrating, but it is what it is. Dak Prescott is the starting quarterback for the Cowboys. It's been good for them to have the success that Cooper Rush is having because at this point, you have now won every game that Dak's been out, and he's kept the team afloat and in the running for the division and all that. I mean, they're still going to have to beat the Eagles, but he's done a great job. But I still think when Dak gets back, you still got to roll with him. Dylan, it was good to see Chris Jans on SEC game day. Yeah, he's been really active around, out and about. I think State fans have got to get out there and support the basketball teams this year. It's going to take a little bit for the men's team to get going, but those teams need support. Jerron, if the Cowboys were to move on from Dak, where do you think he'd fit best in the NFL? Who else besides the Steelers? Yeah, I'd love him in Pittsburgh. I'm trying to think, a place that there's places that need quarterbacks. And Washington needs a quarterback, but I don't know if you want him to go to Washington. They're not very good. I'm thinking about spots that need quarterbacks. Oh yeah, Pittsburgh. They need a quarterback, don't they? I would take him in a heartbeat. Because the situation we have right now is just absolutely awful. Travis, any update on the hump construction? How close are they? They are not close at all. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have some temporary setups and stuff like that. I was in there the other day, and they don't look like they're very close to finishing. They were just ripping up the floor the other day. They had to rip up the floor in the hump, and they're putting down, I believe, a temporary floor. So I mean, you got to do that. There's still some things to be done in the concourse. I mean, they got a lot of stuff to do. Rodney Rhodes, Dak to the Saints, if not at the Cowboys. That would be a good spot. I think that'd be good. That's a team that needs a quarterback. I don't think anybody feels very comfortable with that quarterback situation right now. So yeah, I wouldn't think that would be a bad idea at all. And Louisiana guy, I mean, I think they would embrace him. Yeah, and you don't have a really out of touch owner that is making some bad decisions every now and then, and I think holding the team back in some regards. So yeah, that wouldn't be bad at all. All right, any more questions? Dylan feeling confident about baseball this year. Yeah, I think they'll rebound. They got some talent, man. This team's really talented. This class coming in, I think, is really good. They should be able to get some early playing time, and those guys, by the time they're juniors, that should be a really, really good nucleus. And the guys they have returning, I feel like they have some good pieces there. They just got to put it together from a pitching standpoint, get the outfield settled. I think they'll be pretty good this year. All right. Awesome. I appreciate you guys. An hour's worth of time in here. Great talk once again. Tom T, I love breakfast meat. I don't know what is happening here. People are not listening. People, you got to listen. I love breakfast meat. But I will eat breakfast without meat. If meat is not available, I will still eat the breakfast. I I feel like people are misconstruing the conversations that we have on Thunder and Lightning. I really feel like there's something being lost in translation. Just like the stuff with Hey Dad. Hey Dad complained with his face the other day about the breakfast. He looked at the breakfast and immediately gave me a look that he didn't like what he was seeing. That was a complaint with the face. That counts. That's all I'm saying. And yes, I eat banana pudding, Alton. You're exactly right. That man is a menace for not eating banana pudding. All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all. We'll be back next week. Tune in to Thunder and Lightning tomorrow. We got some talk, some of the same things we talked about here, but a little more in-depth conversation with Brian and I. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Make sure you're subscribed to 247 and even the Starkville Daily. Come check us out too. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the week. We will talk to you next Monday or at some point next week. We'll have another conversation. Hopefully, we're talking about Mississippi State win. We'll see. You guys have a great rest of the week. Talk to you later. See you down the road.